Call the meeting to order. I'm
Call to
not
order
ready yet.
for the Berlin Finance Committee. Open session public meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be recorded. All right. We're going to start with the warrant, get the easy stuff out of the way.
Okay, so this is the draft warrant, everyone has a copy of it. I guess I can unplug this because that doesn't pertain to the warrant right now, or you can just ignore it.
Okay.
This went to KP Law for review. There are a couple of financial articles in here that pertain to this committee. The first would be Article 1, which is a prior year bill. It asks to take $1,000 in free cash for the payment of a partial 20 and 21 armor stipend to Officer Michael Berry. The union contract states that the stipend is to be $1,000, and unfortunately, he was only paid $500. And that's a prior year bill, so we cannot pay it out of any of our current funding sources. It would have
So
to
for
come out of
2
free cash.
years, we owe, okay.
For 2 years, yep. So he's paid $500 for each of those years instead of $1,000. So I don't know how you guys usually do this. Do you vote now? Do you vote later? Do you have an informational one first? Or how do you kind of like to do it, Scott?
Let's just probably just go through each one, and see if we can do a group voting, find the easy stuff and go from there.
Okay.
So if anybody has any further questions, we'll just
Wait a
move
minute,
on to the next.
wouldn't it make more sense to just, so she can write in our recommendations with each one? Because then we're gonna, poor Julie's gonna have to go back. No? I'm just-
Sure, we can do that.
I don't know.
We
I just
can
think
make it,
it
we
would
can
make it
quick.
easier for me. We can be quick. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I recommend that we pay Michael Berry his $1,000 for Article 1.
I will second Janet's motion.
All right, any more discussion? Roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Julie, I.
Okay. Article 2, not specifically financial, but sort of financial. Given COVID and the change of administration, there are a number of articles, mostly capital in nature, actually all of them capital in nature, that are supposed to have their funding expire June 30th of 2023. So June's recommendation was actually just to take the sunset clause off of these articles because she is now allowed to administratively close out those articles once the funds have been expended. So rather than put another sunset clause, and hopefully we wouldn't have to extend it again, but to avoid having to do that, you're not required to put sunset clauses on articles unless you want to. So her recommendation was just to remove them in case there's further supply chain delays or with whatever else is going on out there. We have the intent of getting them done. In fact, the air handler is already on order. That was a 20 to 25 week delay. We ordered that back in January. So just an example of one of the ones. Oh, in recreation courts, the select board approved adding some ARPA funding Monday night to that bid, which came in about $26,000 over. So we're able to move forward with the recreation court project. And that bid does have in it that we want it done by June 30th. So that one, unless we have to do an extension for, again, delay in materials, that one is on track to be done by the end of this
And
fiscal
who knows
year.
what's going to happen to Article 7.2, the roof, because that's part of the assessment, so
Yep.
that might have to wait. So, okay. I recommend we accept Article 2 regarding sunset clauses as suggested by our town accountant.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Julie, I.
Thank you. This is one that you guys might want to talk a little
What
bit about.
number?
Not number 3.
Oh.
Replenish the FY23 reserve fund. So
This is what we talked about last time.
This is what we talked about last time. So the articles, and I can pull these up. There were a number of articles that were in here before that we decided based on our
Do we have to see
conversation. Yeah, if you want, I can
Okay,
pull this
hold on,
up.
just a minute.
Yes. Thank you. These are the budget adjustments that June and I have gone over for FY '23. So there is a surplus in employee benefits this year. There won't be next year, but that's another conversation. There is a surplus in employee benefits as well as, sorry, that's reserve fund transfers that we've done to date. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So there is a surplus in the audit because we hired a new firm at a lower rate. So we saved $6,000 this year and actually $17,000 next year. And there's a surplus in employee benefits this year of about $100,000. We didn't have the large 10% increase this year that we're seeing next year. So that surplus is about $106,000. We have a number of line items that are projected to run over, totaling $104,100. So that gives us enough to make those end of year transfers internally, which from talking to June, I understand, and you guys, this is typically how you like to do it here rather than bring it to town meeting. Either way is totally legal and fine. But my question is, should there be something else that comes up? As you can see, I have $1,900 left. And you will have, I do have a reserve fund transfer for you this evening for $4,500 from veterans. So that's going to bring your reserve fund balance down to, I believe, $24,000. Should you have anything extraordinary come up, I think it would be prudent to replenish the reserve fund with an additional $50,000, knowing that it will flow to free cash if not used, to be reappropriated at a future town meeting. It's been a rough year.
Part of me wants to leave your 100,000 right where it is because it's going to be needed next year.
Well, the 100,000 will stay. That will flow. The thing is, if we don't use that, it's going to flow to free cash. So unfortunately, I can't transfer it over.
I get
so
that,
I wish. I know.
10%.
So it just circles, just cycles.
It cycles, right? Because it'll get closed out at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Any
yeah.
line items that aren't used.
Yeah.
will
Did
get
we
closed
have
out.
to look at other insurances? Because I'm going to be honest, my premium went down this year because of the Harvard Pilgrim Tufts merger.
Yep.
So it seemed like that's kind of crazy that we're sticking with, I mean, I want equal benefits, don't get me wrong. But did we look at any other insurances?
So we're part of a group pool through Maya, which is
Right.
what most of the government agencies
Right,
are.
right.
They go back 3 years and do an average of what your claims are. We actually were going to get a 27% increase, but because we're in the pool, they capped that increase at 10.5. So we actually made out by being in the pool. They go out to bid every couple of years. I can tell you, we forged out on our own in my previous community and ended up paying more. It's something we could do, but I think we're actually afforded a bit more protection by being part of a larger pool because your claims
No, I
kind
get
of
it.
even out.
Yeah, I mean, we dealt with this, well, a long time ago when I was on the finance committee before, and talking about, even at that time, we still had schools, at least BMS was still part of it. And once BMS was going to move, basically the number of employees or potential employees makes the plan so tiny.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, there was no way we could be on our own.
Yeah, that 27% was scary to me, and the Maya rep, when she came out, said, you guys are really lucky that we capped increases of 10.5 for everybody this year. So I think we're actually, in a better place than we would be.
All right, so
So the question is, do we have enough to make these interdepartmental end-of-year transfers? But just to be safe, do we also want to put a little bit more in the reserve fund in case something unforeseen happens in May and June, knowing that that would flow to free cash? Obviously, it can't be used for anything other than an unforeseen extraordinary expense at your direction. This is the FinCom's money. And then, it would be reappropriated at a future date through the free cash process.
I mean, I don't know what, there's who knows what can come up. I mean, I dealt things before when suddenly they want a new loader type of emergency, and that's like completely off the table of any type of funds being available for stuff like that.
Yeah.
It would seem, based on what we know, I mean, that the 50,000 will be probably sufficient, because come May 1st, if we really had to, we could tap the 100,000 to fill up the line items if there's anything else that's coming in insufficient.
Well, we're already tapping the 100 though for all of these items. So
Yeah,
then
it's
that only
gone.
leaves
It leaves us
1,900.
of that 100,000 is already gone.
Yep.
There's only
that's my-
1,900 left of it.
That's my concern. So you would have 1,900 left out of that 106, and your reserve fund is going to be at 24.
It's nothing we can do about that right now. It's just
It
stuck
would
that way.
require a town meeting adjustment.
That's why we're gonna put the extra 50 in to try to get that a little improved for next year. Am I understanding that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you are putting an extra 15,000 in next year. And I think part of why things were so high this year were legal. Those are one-time issues that really pushed up the reserve fund into use, and consulting from the 2 executive recruitments that were done. And I've already told Chief and myself we're here for like at least 25 years, so you're gonna have to do that again for a while. So you're all set.
Thank you, Kristen.
You're very welcome.
Making me happy.
So I don't know, I mean, I get why you want to do it, and I don't really see why we shouldn't do it, because if we don't end up using it, it goes back anyways.
Right, and you can only touch it for those unforeseen, like say all of a sudden, I don't know, something broke that is critical that can't wait till July 1. That's the only situation you'd be in. My concern, I would hope we wouldn't have to touch this money. My fear is something unforeseen happens, like the alarm system breaks in the building and now we can't fix it for 2 months. That's my only concern. And hopefully we're
I'm-
doing preventative maintenance and checks on that, so that
I'm
wouldn't
confused
happen,
by,
but-
you said that the 100,000 from in the benefits that's
Look up
being
here.
used up here, I don't see how it's being
Right, so the.
added up, well,
So
okay.
these are end of year transfers that June and I have talked about. Basically, we had all of the, we looked at
Oh,
all of
okay,
the
I don't-
budgets
I
that had
don't-
overages. Yeah.
I don't
It's
have
not
legal
on
and
the- yeah.
consulting on this one, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, legal needs more.
And what is it related to the stuff we talked about before, or
Yep.
other,
Related to the things we talked
Completely-
about before.
okay.
Nothing new.
Because we were hoping that a lot of that was going to go down now that we didn't have got through the police.
We got through
Uh,
the union negotiation,
union
but not the other issues.
Okay. So is there any light to the end of the tunnel on those other issues, or?
Any what?
Light at the end of the tunnel for any of those issues, or is it?
Yes, that's up to, though, the timing of the court system, which is totally out of our hands, unfortunately. But there will be a decision made.
What about the, and I know we talked about this before, what I look at is paying twice for something for the, materials going into Maple Woods, because that's already being checked by the state of Massachusetts, and we're doing a second check, and it's costing us a lot of money. Is there any looking at that agreement to try to stop that? Because I don't know. I guess to me, if the state of Massachusetts is approving it, it has to be approved. It's very strict as to how it has to, what it is and how it has to be approved. We're kind of like paying for an additional service, which is just agreeing with the state. Has any of those second reviews come up with anything different? I guess is my question.
They have, and I'm preparing a memo for the board for Monday night. I think you're a
Okay.
fly on my wall, actually.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good to talk about that, because while they have found some inconsistencies and there have been some revisions, there haven't been, except for one overall rejection, and that was a rejection of a part of the soil that wasn't actually going there. It was part of a larger package that they just didn't narrow down to Maplewood specifically, is my understanding. So I have about a 3-page document. I've been speaking with DEP, been speaking with the Johnstons, their consultants, our consultants, and I'm trying to find a path forward that could be cheaper for us.
Yeah.
The problem is, yes, they report to DEP. They are hired and paid for by Maplewood. So now I've spoken with DEP. The person is a very reputable consultant that is hired. They have to follow DEP standards and regulations. DEP has expressed no concerns at all with the reviewer of those documents. So I'm putting something together to present to the board Monday. It's complicated. The town asked for that extra layer.
I understand.
But I don't. I have to do a little bit more research before I'm ready to make a
In your putting that together,
recommendation.
can you give a cost, an additional, like what it is it's actually cost us
Over the years?
over the years?
Over $100,000.
And that's already being checked by DEP.
Yes.
And of those, however many years it's been, we have one
I believe
questionable
I've got to
event,
check.
which wasn't even really something coming to Berlin. It was just within the yeah. I think that needs to be looked into. That's a lot of money that we have to think of our townspeople and how we're spending money.
Absolutely.
How many years have we been doing this now? Let's go back.
2000, well, the ACO, the administrative consent order with DEP was executed in 12, I believe.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So we're over a decade.
Yeah, and I could see keeping it if we had some inconsistencies with all of those loads going in there. But
I have to say there were some issues with the paperwork. I've got to go back and look. Weston and Sampson actually just gave me a breakdown yesterday of what those issues were. So I'm still kind of in the fact finding and putting it forth. But by Monday, I will have a recommendation.
Wow, you're gonna work fast.
So Janet, I don't know the background that
All the
Kristen
pieces.
just said about the town actually asked to have that
Correct.
that check.
That added check.
But I'm very uncomfortable with the property owner paying for. Let me finish the thought. Paying for those kinds of services, and the DEP saying, "Yeah, it's fine. We know those people. They're fine." I'm very uncomfortable with that because nobody wants to raise an issue in their jobs, including at DEP.
Mhm.
And so I get behind the town's idea that we're going to take an independent look. What I can't get behind is that we're doing it at the frequency we are and with the predictability we are. So I would like less frequent surprise checks on the process by the town and save some money
That's
in that
another
direction rather than pull the plug on it.
I was under the impression that DEP itself is checking it, and then this independent one is a second check. So
I'm going
that
to guess
might-
they're checking the data and the papers, Janet. They're not in there actually with their hands in the soil.
No, I think
or
it has to go.
whatever
The
you stick in
soil
the
has
soil.
to be checked by them.
The soil?
Mm-hmm.
So-
I'm pretty sure.
I'll tell you, the third-party reviewer that you're talking about is a gentleman named Paul McManus. So he actually reviews, so there's two parties involved. There's Lighthouse Environmental, a gentleman named Scott Parker and he is the Johnston's licensed site professional. He reviews the characterization of the site that comes. So he is certifying to DEP that the materials are acceptable for reuse. Weston and Sampson is looking at those documents and saying, yes, we agree with Maplewoods LSP. Now, where this third-party guy comes in is he visits the site monthly and undertakes what they call third-party inspections, where he's actually testing the soil, he's looking at environmental controls, erosion,
And that's the
water.
person we're paying.
No,
Who's that?
Maplewood still pays for that person. So they're not entirely independent, but they do have to follow DEP standards because DEP requires this third-party reviewer.
Right,
So
so-
he submits a monthly report to DEP. It's a process set up which requires both of those LSPs. They have to approve it, and they put their licenses on the line, if you will. And I did confirm that with DEP. It's just there's a lot of information here to try to figure this all out.
It's very confusing too, especially if you
Yeah.
don't understand like-kind soil.
Yeah, so, let's see. So the LSP, which is Lighthouse, reviews compliance with the soil plan. The independent guy does the monthly site inspections. And DEP sometimes goes out and does their own inspections when issues are raised. So I kind of thought the third-party reviewer was with DEP too, but actually he's paid by the project as a consultant and reports to DEP. So.
Still a lot of money.
I agree.
And I don't disagree with Mary, and I do agree that somebody has to be a check and balance, but we have three separate people paying attention to this. It just seems a lot.
So we're averaging about 10K a year. That's what we're doing. If it's reached 100,000.
So it's over 100. I can get the exact amount for you and let you know, but I can tell you the bills were, I want to say they were around $1,200 to $1,500 a month, but it all depends on how many truckloads come in that month. So there were a lot last month, as you may have heard. There was a lot of kind of rumbling in the community about it. That was a $3,500 bill to review all of those soil packages.
When do they anticipate this might be finished?
They told us 18 to 24 months. They told DEP 12 to 18 months. It's not a time limit. It's the amount of, it's a grade, a limit by getting to a certain amount of fill that's allowed to get to a grade. And so they're allowed to get to a 3% grade to fill on that
it's
property.
available, it takes the process again.
Exactly. Okay. So we have sped up the process with Weston and Sampson. We've asked them to cut down their time on the review, which is why you're seeing more trucks, because they're trying to get it done faster. But that it costs money, no doubt.
All right. So Article 3, we kind of got sidetracked, and I apologize. So I'm going to make a recommendation based on our town accountant and our town administrator to put the $50,000 from free cash into the reserve fund.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
Yeah, I just need to understand, probably a question to Kristen. I'm looking at the draft that we looked at last week,
Yes.
and we were going to do a bunch of things in this particular article, so now we're just doing the free cash piece?
Right. So all of these were in the warrant.
Right.
And when June met with us last week, she talked about taking those out and doing those as an end of year transfer internally was typically how that was
Okay.
preferred to be done.
So that's where we landed. We're just going to do the one on the warrant. Everything else will be done with those internal transfers.
End
Thank
of
you.
year. Yep.
Yeah, I just needed to.
Every community
Close
is kind
that.
of different. My community liked to bring those to town meeting in my former community, and here they not do end of year transfers. It's just a preference.
Yep.
So I had them in there initially because I'm just used to putting them in there.
All right, any other discussion?
That's it. That's the only question
I'm
I
all
had.
set.
Okay, roll call. Scott, aye.
Mary, aye.
Janet, I.
Julie, aye.
Okay. The next article is the transfer of an additional $114,000 in ambulance receipts reserved for the purchase and equipping of that ambulance 6A-1 that was originally appropriated funding at the town meeting in November of 2021. So this is increase in costs associated with that, which the select board initially held some ARPA funding so that could move forward, but they asked the town meeting go ahead and allocate, or that we request the town meeting allocate that funding out of ambulance receipts reserves. They felt that was a more appropriate place for that funding
And we
to
have
come
enough
from.
of the ambulance receipt reserve to cover this?
We do. I confirmed that with June.
Okay. So that's no problem.
What are we at the cost for the ambulance now? What's the total cost?
Let me give you that. So it was 320 plus the 114, so 424. Is that correct?
Or 434?
434. Sorry.
Or that's it? That's just the, okay.
That's the ambulance, and that's everything to equip it.
Yeah, it's right here. Look below.
Yeah, I saw that.
320 plus this
We've been
140.
moving around so much money on this thing. 'Cause I thought we've done some other transfers.
We did another $5,000 transfer in May of last year.
And is the 320 includes that 5K or?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can break it up if
That's okay.
easier.
That's all right. I just wanted to get, because I didn't want to start looking through all my articles here.
Yeah, no. So
See
it was
where
initially
we've had-
315 was approved in Article 7 at the November 2021 town meeting, and then another 5,000 was approved in Article 5 of the 2022 annual town meeting, for a total of 320, plus this 114.
I feel like we've been
Okay.
just talking about this forever.
Yeah, this
So
is-
I make a motion for Article 4, to pay the additional 114 out of ambulance receipts as recommended by town accountant and town administrator.
I second it. Second your motion.
All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, aye.
Janet, I.
Julie, I.
All right, Article 5 is a preservation restriction for the Bullard House. It's so they can apply for a grant, so nothing financial at this time. How do you handle those? Do you just not do a
We don't do
recommendation?
anything.
Again, authorizing the board to do solar pilot agreements. Doesn't really have anything
No.
financial, it's just giving an authorization to seek those agreements. Article 7 does authorize the select board to enter into a number of agreements with, a number of agreements regarding the highway solar pilot. So again, nothing really specific to you all. You want to vote on purchasing River Run for $1?
So we've decided to do this?
That's where we're at. We have some interest in actually purchase or lease of that property from a third party.
I know this is sounding crazy, but the third party, what would it be and how much will we be getting in taxes versus no taxes here?
So right now, it's just in the discussion phase. We would have to put an RFP out. So we would put an RFP out, see how much people would be willing to pay, and at that time, it would depend on who bids, basically.
So you're saying we can buy this for $1 and then resell it if we had a third party? Okay.
And it's
I
valued.
thought there was already somebody interested in it and.
There has been interest in it, but we would have to put an RFP out. And basically, an RFP allows you to kind of determine what you think the best and highest use for that property is. And then they come to you and tell you what they're willing to pay for it. The assessed value currently is $256,900
It's on
for
the next
FY23.
page.
Yep, sorry, it carries over onto the next.
Thank you.
Yep. So this step is actually just to get the property in the town's coffers, if you will, and authorize the select board to move forward with leasing and or selling that parcel through either an IFB, an auction, or a RFP process.
But right now, Riverbridge is paying the taxes on that 256.9, correct?
But there is a development agreement in place with Riverbridge that goes back many years that allows the town to an option to purchase that parcel for $1. That parcel has 2 wells on it, some land and conservation, and some development opportunity for housing on it.
Does it have frontage?
Yeah, there's one piece of it that you can put housing on.
There's frontage, Janet, and there is a road access that goes back.
Yeah.
It's a
there's
road
one
that's shared
little
with
piece.
Boundless Adventures and then the 4 or 5 houses that are
Right.
In the
parallel
in
to
that lot,
yeah,
in that
parallel
big-
to River Road. So yeah, it's a pretty good deal in my view.
Well, my brain is thinking CPA if they're wanting to put in,
Relax.
just thinking,
Yeah.
out loud.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you answered my question. But we don't, do we have to vote on?
Well,
it
are we
all?
raising, where were we raising and appropriating from, or do they just select board and just has the dollar to?
We don't actually really pay the $1.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just really.
If there's nothing to raise and appropriate, then we don't have to vote.
Yeah.
The next one you do, we've been getting funds from the opioid settlements, the various ones the town has participated in. To date, we've received $17,587.67. So this is one thing I'm checking with legal counsel on. There's a couple different mechanisms. What they're really kind of recommending at the state level now is to create a settlement stabilization account, put the money in there, and then when you have a plan for education, prevention or services, we may be able to do something with Victoria around these issues, then you would appropriate those funds for that purpose.
Yeah, a lot
But we
of
need a
this-
place
yeah.
to park it, at least for right now, as they come in, while we develop a program for use of them.
I see, so the funds stay right where they belong.
Correct, because as they come in, everything
yep.
gets muddled in the free cash pile.
Sure,
but
sure.
Those have to be specifically appropriated.
Makes sense.
And if we had a school, that might fall into that area, but we don't have a school. I know that's what a lot of my nurse colleagues have been getting money from the state for this particular thing, so.
Right, but we do have social services, and Victoria does work with
Yeah,
PD,
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
it's something we can talk about building.
Yeah. We could do a town.
And we're set to get money every year. Some of them are 10 years, some of them are 15 years. It's not a lot of money. This looks more because I think there was like a balloon payment up front in the first year for one of these. We're in 2 right now with a 3rd pending. And they're really going after the makers of the opioid drugs.
These funds are coming from Massachusetts, not federal, yeah? This is Mass.
They're coming from legal settlements.
Well, Massachusetts participated in this settlement, I think, with...
We had to actually go into the settlement. I don't know if we were through the town, the state directly on some. Some I thought we
Oh, it was direct.
entered in just direct as the town.
Yeah.
I can check on that.
That's okay, there's a lot going, that's just curiosity.
Yeah, it depends. There's so many of them out there,
Bless
so
you.
it's like,
Thank you.
figuring out which one is which.
Yeah,
You'd have to do a
understood.
digging.
I move that the town establish an opioid settlement stabilization account to appropriate funds from the opioid settlement stabilization of currently $17,587.67 and future funds to be put into that opioid settlement stabilization from the opioid settlement stabilization. Wow, that's a lot.
I'll second Janet's motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, roll call. Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Jan and I.
Julie, I.
Okay. And Article 10 is transferring, it's very similar, public safety mitigation payments received to the Public Safety Stabilization Fund. This is to transfer all funds that have been received since July 1, which right now total $203,761.54. We do have an outstanding billing to Highland Commons that we have not received yet, but we may not receive that in time for town meeting, so we'll appropriate it next year.
I'm gonna make this one easy. I move that the town vote to transfer $203,761.54 to the Public Safety Special Purpose Stabilization Fund, as recommended by the town administrator.
I'll second the motion.
Any other discussion?
Not I.
All
Wait,
right, sure.
I just wanted to ask, we already have this Public Safety Special
The account's been
Yeah.
set up, yeah.
account, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Yeah, that was
Scott.
established
Yeah, I
in
thought we did,
21.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I thought I understood that, okay. No, sorry, Scott.
Okay. Roll call. Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Julie, I.
All right, thank you. And next one, Community Preservation Act projects. So this first part of the warrant is FY23. They've asked that we put the community garden fence on for this year so they can start on it before July 1. They are looking for $45,000 from CPA. I don't know if you normally vote on CPA projects.
Yes, we have.
Yeah,
We
Okay.
have?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we've done the, each of the,
That I don't remember. So they only have one article?
One just for this fiscal year, and then they have several for FY24
Okay.
that will come up on shortly.
I make a motion that we appropriate a total of $45,000 from the fund balance reserve for open space from the community garden fence as recommended by the CPA committee and agricultural committee.
Second your motion.
All right, any further discussion? All right, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, aye.
Janet, aye.
Julie, aye.
All right, now we're into FY24, the budget. We don't know anything about that. So I understand FinCom typically puts together a separate, its own document that gets sent out. So this is how it was written in last year's. If that looks okay to you, that's how we can proceed with the budget and start getting it in that separate document.
Yep.
All right. Capital improvement, they are 90% there. They met Wednesday and they're meeting again Monday. And I think they'll be able to finalize and then I can put their items in there. So, do you take a vote on capital, I imagine?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back to that one then. Cable access. I unfortunately wasn't able to get the dollar amount on that one from June before she went on her cruise. I'm so happy for her. So that one will hold then until I get the actual number, but that is the typical language. So I just need to get the budget number on that. Article 15 is amending the revolving fund bylaw. I don't know if you normally vote on general bylaws.
No, only if there's again,
Financial
raise and
impact.
appropriate.
Okay.
And,
And then the annual spending limits are just annual spending limits. It's not raise and appropriate. Article 17 would be for you though. Authorized transfer of insurance restitution funds. So the town received $7,057.75 in restitution funds from a Boston Mutual matter. And as part of that settlement agreement, it went through insurance. Any funds that were returned to the town from Boston Mutual were to be sent back to the insurance company as they had reimbursed the town. So anything we actually got back from the company needed to be returned to insurance. And that's what this allows us to do. Transfer those funds received back to Maya, who is our insurance company.
okay, so basically they had either paid out something to the town.
They paid out on the claim.
Okay.
So if the company provided any restitution funding to us,
Yep.
we owe it back to the insurance company, exactly.
Okay.
Sorry if I didn't explain that
Yep.
clearly enough.
I didn't understand it, but I get it now.
Yeah.
I move the town vote to transfer $757.75 in Boston Mutual Restitution Fund from free cash to Meyer from Boston Mutual Restitution Funds.
Let me just get up to speed. What article are we speaking about?
17.
Oh, 17, thank you.
It's just a matter of moving claim money that got paid to the town and then
Okay.
from the insurance company.
Sure. Okay, I second Janet's
I just
motion.
didn't know if you,
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, aye.
Jan and I.
Julie, aye.
Have we ever had, on Article 618, I'm just looking at it, have we ever had a cap on senior tax abatement work-off?
So you can either cap the number of hours, or you can cap the dollar amount. So right now, the town caps the town uses minimum wage, which went up to $15. So what happens with that is the abatement goes up over $1,500. So the town is basically not able to take on as many senior workers because we're having to pay out more. So what this would do, and this was at the recommendation of the COA director, it would actually cap the abatement at $1,500, which is where the cap essentially was for all intents and purposes. But since minimum wage kept climbing, it would reduce the number of hours, though, of course, from 125 to 100 hours. But it would give you the opportunity to have more people participate in the program by capping it at that $1,500.
Which only seems fair.
Kind of is, especially we have a lot of new home ownership opportunities coming online with Highland Ridge, which is her second recommendation to reduce the residency requirement to 1 year. There actually doesn't have to be a residency requirement at all. Right now, Berlin has a 5-year residency requirement on it before you can participate in the work-off program.
So let me push a bit on that Highland Ridge assumption, if I might.
Sure.
If you can afford to live up there, you don't qualify for this. That's
You
a
may not.
no. I am not joking.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not
Yeah.
joking.
That
And
was gonna
and
be
and I
my-
don't, yeah, I'm just like,
That was gonna be my question. Is there a cap, like, is there a, like, what if you have, like, overabundance of people? Like, how do we figure out which one is the one that's most needy? Because that seems to be what this is for people that are in need. Is that making sense? What is the language behind all this?
Right, so it's for anyone 60 and over, and I would have to look into what the requirements are in terms of income. But it's a way to work off your taxes. So
I remember that figure from a while ago.
is
and if
there a
you-
figure attached to it?
Yeah, but I don't remember what it is.
I
and
don't want to speak out of turn because I don't have it in my
I'm
mind.
telling you, if you can afford to live in those properties,
afford that,
you-
yeah.
you're not in this category.
Okay.
Let
And
me-
they match people up with basically what their skills are with the needs of departments. So that's kind of how it gets done. And they don't do it necessarily based on who's lower income. It's more, you have the ability to do X, this department needs X, so they try to make it be a good
Right,
match.
I understand. And is the 60 a state age? Oh, that's young.
Yeah,
I can do senior work off, Mary.
Congratulations, Janet, you have arrived. So,
AARP is 50 still, isn't it?
thank you, Peg.
55,
That,
I think.
I thought it was a pretty good joke too.
Because she too will be there.
So,
Already there.
and let me push a bit on that and that $1,500 cap too, because I don't, I understand that we don't have, we can't afford to offset people's taxes, but the people that need this really need it.
Right, that's-
And then a further thought I have about this whole topic, and I don't know what it means for this warrant, but I'll throw it out there, is listening to needs in the school district, like a little vignette. The Nancy, the finance operations person, tells me she needed a cashier, or I guess somebody didn't show for work, or something happened and they needed a cashier in the cafeteria or something. And so Nancy said, my go-to person is Julie Lee. I call Julie, she's got me a person, right? And I don't know whether this tax offset, if we could take the seniors that qualified and offer them to the school district, or if the duties carried out have to be here in the town offices.
That's a good question.
Because it's something that potentially we could do for the district, and that could open up a lot of skill sets for some of our seniors, people that taught, people that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I know they have a lunch, extra lunch personnel on. And
Extra hands in the office, whatever it
Yeah,
is, whatever.
that's a fabulous question.
But I don't know.
Look into that.
I don't know if the state rules around this would allow that sort of thing, because we're not. We don't have a school right now under the town, but we participate in that district. So could we?
Well, our
could
taxes, their taxes are going mostly there.
Yeah, and could we tap this pool of people in town and then maybe not shut the people down because we.
In other words, sourcing the school with seniors that then could
Should
get
bring up- Is it 40,000 and 55? Is that what you've asked?
Somebody gave me an iPad. Isn't that very nice?
Is the 5 years
Let's
saying that they have
see.
to be a resident of town for at least 5 years?
Yeah.
Is that what it means? Okay.
No, you have to be, yes, I'm sorry, residency requirement of 5 years.
You
Yep.
have to have
Mass
lived in town
General.
at least 5 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mass General Law, Chapter 57, sections 5K and 5N, one for senior, one for veterans.
So that's where,
We allow municipal employees to participate in it. Seniors and veterans.
What's that called, Mary?
It's called
Mass law.
a tax work-off abatement program. Property tax work-off abatement program. Berlin Council on Aging administers it. The tax year, blah, blah, blah. Right now, for Berlin budgets, $20,000 in support of this program. I'm looking at our regulations. 60 or over, an assessed owner of the property as of July 1 of the relevant year. For the veterans, no age restriction. Oh yeah, and here's the age 6 assessed owner of a property and owned and occupied a home in Berlin for the last 5 years. Have skills appropriate for the
Oh,
program.
the law
position.
says 5 years?
Yeah.
These are ours.
Oh, they're our laws. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry,
So this
sorry,
is
sorry.
Berlin's implementation
Gotcha.
of
Yeah.
the Mass General Law,
Mhm.
Chapter 59.
So you said we do the maximum 20,000, or what where have we appropriated before 20,000 to, or how do we pay for it?
assessors.
It just comes straight off their,
Comes off our revenue. We don't spend. We take it. We decrease our revenue, Scott.
Did you
It's
say
done in the assessor's
159? Or
59?
59,
Chapter
Mass General Law,
Sorry,
Chapter
I was just
59.
That's what I wanted to read. Thanks.
Subsection 5 N and K.
do we have any numbers on how much this is utilized in terms of the dollar amount?
So this year, Victoria said they were at, I think, 9,000 in utilization so far, and we're, what, 2/3 of the way through the year. Peggy Sardell helps out with the program, and she didn't believe we were going to hit 20 for this year.
So maybe we're premature in capping. That's kind of where I'm heading. Or do we really need to do that? Everybody, you complete a timesheet for hours of work, blah, blah, blah. So you just go back. Applicants selection process. So the town departments submit to the tax work-off program manager a request for a tax work-off worker. So if our school district qualified, they would submit a request that administrator would be Victoria's. They'd submit it through there,
Yes.
and whatever their needs are, and then that administrator matches applicants to the department request.
Correct.
For this particular one, though, we're not raising appropriating anything, so we don't need to take a vote here.
No, sorry, Scott, I'm
I think
deviating
to Mary's
from our
point,
mission
what
here
she's saying
tonight.
is we're choosing to cap it off rather than to pay the minimum wage, in that we're not even going to hit our cap this year, so maybe less people would be served. Did I understand that correct?
No, I'm just questioning why put a cap on it at all in terms of, I'm questioning the entire warrant article. Correctly points out, because it's an offset to revenues, not spend. We really don't have a dog in this fight, maybe as the FinCom, but it is a revenue impact, Scott.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if what the historical numbers are. I mean, are they coming up and saying they're suddenly seeing a heavy utilization? If you went back 3 years ago, it's hardly been touched, and as financial situations and or just word gets out, are we seeing a surge, or has it just been steady? I mean, that could be the interesting thing to see. What's the history been?
I can get some more information on it.
Maybe we can just pass on this one and see if we have more information next round.
Yeah, there's nothing we actually have to vote, but it would be good to have more information. Or else you can challenge them, whoever is the sponsor of this on the, was this Council on Aging Director is sponsoring this?
So I'm looking at the history on the Berlin. Berlin accepted this provision under Mass Law in 2014 town meeting. amended it to pay minimum wage in December 2014, and then 2015, I guess, is that 125 hours cap? Was that when that was put in? Yeah.
Yeah, so because it's at 125 hours, it's at an hour cap instead of a dollar amount cap,
Exactly.
they can go over the 15, which is, yeah, so it comes out to 18, I think, and change.
I see.
I mean, obviously, the advantage of a dollar cap is if with the minimum wage
You don't have to
goes up in the future, you don't have to keep
Right.
changing this.
Right.
Because that's what they're trying to do, is keep a steady max per individual.
So maybe.
Do we have to match minimum wage? I mean, this is a volunteer.
We voted to. Amended special town meeting,
Okay.
December 8, 2014, minimum wage. That appears to
I
be,
think statutorily you have to pay
Okay.
minimum wage.
Yeah,
I
as
just
well.
was
probably I was gonna
curious.
say that.
I wasn't saying we shouldn't, I was
No.
just asking a question.
No, it's fair.
our vote might have followed the state requirement then. That might be why.
Yeah, so
we-
the state lets you go either way.
Ah,
It says
okay.
you can either
Okay.
base it on 125 service hours in a given year or 1,500. But I thought it said in here that it was based on whatever the minimum wage. Yep. Let's see, each person. No person shall receive, interesting. No person shall receive a rate of or be credited with more than the current minimum wage of the Commonwealth. All right, let me do a little more digging into this one.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody's indulgence when I
No problem.
I was like, what?
The next two articles are put on by the Board of Assessors. These are requested adjustments to asset and income limits. We'll bring Roger out from behind the camera. I'm just kidding. I was just making sure you were awake over there, Roger, that's all.
This is Peg.
So these are basically adjustments for cost of living. So if the community votes to accept these, the asset limits would be adjusted up based on CPI index. That's Article 19, so it's not a raise and appropriate, but just for your knowledge. And it's similar for Article 20 as well. So if you want to just skip to Article 21, that is the budget for CPA. So this is a raise and appropriate. So this is CPA's requested budget for FY24. You can see their appropriations and revenues and what their breakdown is between housing, sorry, I've got this stuff to me. Housing, historic open space, and this is basically how they want to appropriate their funding, and this is their budget for FY24.
What was their vote on this?
Whose vote?
CPA?
That's a good question.
I'm not voting on this until I know their vote, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I want to know what their discussion, I mean, you guys can all vote, but I'm
I
just going to
think
be
part
honest
of this
with you.
is, I mean, is all of, this is just where they have to put the money by statute.
Mm-hmm.
So this is their, the bottom three are the 10% they're mandated put in, 5% for administrative expenses, and then the rest of it just goes into budget reserves. This isn't
That's
even
my
spending it on
understanding as
anything.
well. It's
This
not
is putting it
spending.
Oh,
into
all right.
its appropriate
Okay,
location.
okay.
So Article 21 is just administrative, and
Just
it's, and it
administrative.
follows,
All right.
it tracks what
I
we're
was
supposed to
thinking
do.
the
Right.
actual
Yeah,
articles.
I know, that's what you're thinking.
I was like, I can't
Okay.
vote on that until
How
I
does
know.
that impact us? Because they have to do this.
It doesn't specifically.
Yeah, it doesn't
I
affect
didn't-
us at all.
I'm
Yeah.
still learning what you guys
Yeah,
take
yeah, yeah,
votes
yeah.
on. and
We're
vote.
still, well, I gotta say,
I'm
for the
not
good,
to capital because I've already listened to the spiel, so I apologize, but yes, you're right, 21 we don't have to do anything with.
yeah, the Community Preservation Act one is
Yeah.
we're still feeling this thing out.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the first year we dealt with this stuff too, it was, I don't know, I think there's a little bit of the piece that they would like to knock out as many, or block out as many people as possible on it, or boards on it.
Yeah.
And I got the feeling they were even trying to, because I had some concerns with how they were doing things, especially when they were mixing with cash, free cash and stuff like that.
Okay.
Even our legal counsel was, I would say she was completely misinformed, tried to push back on us that we couldn't not do this, even it was at town meeting the first year we were doing this. I don't know who she talked to and who even spoke to her, but as I explained to her, is like what the issues were, because at that particular time, it was, we were getting, instead of taking money from free cash, Margaret had found that we had mitigation funds still from Hillside Commons that could be used to offset, and I wanted to use the funds for what they were intended for, instead of, my whole issue was when as soon as they got it with CPA money, they started spending, but it wasn't enough CPA money for them that year, and they wanted to spend more and started looking for free cash as opposed to just waiting until the money came in.
Okay.
And so they were mixing funds, and it
Gotcha.
was a kind of a pushback of which I was so annoyed by, and also when the lawyer, when the town attorney came up, she clearly wasn't well informed on it, and she was trying to shut us down on it. I was like, no. So that is one thing that we're still learning on it, and I know if it's just CPA money, they're the ones that decide, the CPA committee, about what they're going to spend it on. But when it comes to what's been the last few years, is they haven't had enough CPA money, so they start going and looking for other funds.
Oh.
And that's where because so far we haven't gotten past that point. It's always been, we need extra something someplace.
So they did not ask Capital for extra funding
Which is
for
good.
any of their projects this year, but they did come before Capital and present their projects. So I think
Yeah.
that's probably
My
a
question was,
movement.
there still is question that there is not enough money in CPA to fund the projects that are been set forth. And so that's another whole kettle of fish.
So what happens if they put through, they have like 3 projects and they put them through for X amount, but they really need a larger amount Y? If the town votes for all 3, do they have to get that difference?
Well, I don't know where the money's coming from.
So there is
to-
the funding. The question is, it's coming back from the Horseshoe Pond
Right.
purchase. So June is working with DOR on how that funding has to flow back into the coffers. Does it come directly back to CPA, or does it flow through the typical free cash process, require recertification, and then they would have access to it in the fall? So one way or another, they will have access to it in '24. It's just a matter of the mechanism, and we haven't had a land purchase like this where the grant covered it, so the CPA funds are coming back. So she's reached out to the state, and we're waiting for an answer on that.
Okay, so they're not, okay, so we're
They
basically,
have the money, we're waiting for it to come back.
so we are back to a situation where they're proposing projects.
Yeah.
They don't need any additional funding.
They haven't asked for
Outside
it.
of, and they didn't put it in the warrant, so if they need it, they have to wait
Yes.
till.
But
But if they voted,
We're
I mean,
essentially done with capital for all intents and purposes.
so I guess my
mean,
question is though,
not adding
if
more.
they did propose something, right?
Yep.
And let's say, it cost, 1.5 million and they only had 1 million. And it gets voted yes, does the town have to come up with the difference, or they just have to wait for the CPA funding to get replenished?
The
to finish?
town would have had to vote a different funding source to come up with a difference. That does not put the town on the hook for the difference.
Okay, that was
No,
what I
it's a
wasn't,
good-
that-
it's
that's
a
what I
good
wasn't
question.
clear, that's what I wasn't clear on because of what.
Yeah, they
as
can
what
come
Scott
and
said.
ask for it, but that would have to go through a warrant process, whether it be
Okay.
for a capital item or, unless it's, I would say the one exception, Peg's gonna scream me over there. The one exception would be ARPA funding. I'm not saying that would happen, but that is the one exception because that is under the select board's purview as opposed to town meeting's purview. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm not. I'm just, to be
Could you say
factual.
that? Could you say that louder
To be factual.
to get through the file cabinets?
But that
I got the
actually-
look already,
But right,
so
that
we're
actually
good.
happened last night, or just 2 nights ago, right? Because of the basketball courts, which were part of the CPA funding that needed extra funding. So,
Well, but that was, okay,
Yes.
fair enough. It was a little different, though. That was put out to bid, and the
Yes.
bid came in
Well,
over
yes.
budget. That wasn't like they just put in for
But did
something
it-
they didn't have
yeah.
the funding for. There's a nuance there, I would
But
I
did
would
we
argue.
only get one bid?
We did only
Which,
get one
which
bid.
doesn't you think about maybe the whole?
It's the timing. We did get some feedback from some other contractors that if they could do it in the fall, they might have bid, but because we wanted it done by June 30, they had their spring projects lined up.
Okay, so one more thing on this, and I wish June were here, but I do not think that there is enough funding in CPA should we not get that recertification to cover what they're asking for. That's how I understood it from June.
Okay, we can hold off on that.
So,
I mean, I know it's their money, and I'm
Yep.
happy that they're doing projects and spending their money, but like we're, you know, how did Tim word it? It's the one place where you can't spend money you have, but I don't know how he put it out there, but it's basically they have the money, but they can't spend it because they don't have it.
well, yes, his thing was because the uniqueness of the CPA funds being that you're estimating, and you can spend money that you don't have yet, and then he was making the comparison about the reimbursement we're getting for the land grant that we received, which we basically have in hand, but because of details working through it, we can't spend it yet. So it was like what we know the dollar amount to and we're getting, we can't spend, but what we don't have a good accurate number on, we can spend. So that was his, right, and it was accurate.
Yeah,
That.
And, you know, June can probably shed more, or definitely rather, shed more insight
Yeah.
into the actual dollar amounts that are in those accounts presently. Like you said, there is an estimation of future revenue. But she will be back next week, provided she decides to not stay
And
at sea.
I still don't quite understand how this is going to all work out because we're buying one piece of property for $350,000. They want 200 of it from housing, 50 from another 50 from housing. I don't know why they didn't just put 250. I don't know why that's broken up. It's the same exact sentence, but it's same. Why did they not
No,
just
because
say
one's housing and one's with budgeted reserve.
two different funds within CPA, Janet.
Right.
it's?
Two different funds.
Oh, I see. It's
Yeah.
the top
Yeah.
bulleted. Okay, got that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then 100 from open space.
Right, because they're going to put a preservation restriction on the land because it's 6.5. The land is 8.5 acres. 2 acres of it is the house. The rest of it is
Right, I get that, but I don't know. I need more on that. Okay.
Do you want me to ask Tim if he can come next week?
Yeah.
Sure.
And the other question, and I missed it on the fence, but it wasn't as large a number as the other two projects. What I'd asked before about just the if they could just tell us what the ongoing maintenance plan is for these projects.
Yeah, I did get an answer back to that. But if Tim's going to come,
Well, yeah,
I'll let
just as
him-
long as they have,
yeah.
I don't want to like him coming and he still doesn't have it.
No, fair enough.
But the fence is from last year, right? That's got me a
Yeah,
little
that
bit
would, yeah, that
confused
threw me,
too.
yeah.
Why are they not all together here?
Because they're asking for the fence money in FY
FY
'23, and they're asking for the pavilion and the land purchase in '24.
But we're purchasing it in 23.
No, '24.
Fiscal '24.
These are '24 projects. They just want the fence in '23 because they have the funding and they don't want to wait
See,
because
now
they want
that's
to get
where
it
I'm
up
also
before
confused
the
because
summer.
I was under the impression that, well, 24 can start after July 1st, correct?
Starts on
Okay,
July 1.
Okay,
Yep.
because I think the family wants the money soon after town meeting, is how I understood it as well.
Well, they asked for it as an FY '24
Which would
project,
be
so it wouldn't
after-
be available till July 1.
July 1.
And I
Okay.
did confirm with Tim because the fence was 23, so I asked.
Okay.
Pavilion and land 24, fence 23, he said yes.
Okay.
So can I can I go backwards to Article 21? And Scott, what you're saying, if we're not raising and appropriating, but when we're moving money around, is this committee, is that part of our mandate to say we
Yes, I would
recommend or don't
believe that
recommend?
the moving of the money around to make sure that, especially with June sign off and that we are confident that these are the right numbers.
So Article 21, so we would take a vote on Article 21, which is just moving the money into the
I
budget.
would recommend you would.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what
Yeah.
we've done.
I'm just-
That's why I was questioning, because I don't,
Maybe you haven't before, but it is a financial article.
Yeah, we did, we have.
I
in
think
the
we
past.
have.
Yeah.
I think we have.
They're getting more complicated now because of, before we did have the past history. I mean, you can see stuff, I'm assuming this is some cleanup here of fiscal year '22 stuff, because again, this is always that estimated of what you have. And Article 22 is fiscal year '22 transfer of funds and, moving these things around here for the 10% on each of the housing, historic, and open space.
So my guess would be, and we can ask Tim, but much like how we don't have all the public safety mitigation funding in before town meeting because it happens in May,
Yeah.
this would be what happens at the end of the year that isn't able to be captured at the previous year's town meeting.
Yeah, there was a question a couple years ago, what would the CPA projects, would they be able to go to the funding that had not yet been received as tax revenue? And I think that there's that looking forward, looking backward. Projects are looking forward, you got to look backwards to your revenues
Correct.
coming from tax. And so they're going to be estimates, and I think that's probably what we're looking at in Article 22 is.
What's
is-
actually left over when you do your closeout of
Right, topping
22.
off the estimates that were low.
Right, and we just certified FY '22 free cash in January, so there's no way they
Yeah.
would have been able to have it
Yeah.
on a previous town meeting.
Yeah. But it's still moving money, so we need to approve it as a town and I guess as a committee, Scott, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree.
so we're gonna get more
So
questions
we'll
on
ask Tim if he can
21.
come on Wednesday. We're
in the
slated to meet
morning.
Wednesday.
My only concern is June gonna be here
Yes.
next week? Because there was still some question that it was not enough to cover. That's all I want to make sure, is that we're not
Mhm.
gonna be short.
And I'll give her a heads up as well. Okay. So we'll hold then on 21, 22, 23, and 4? 24?
Yes.
Um,
And correct me if I'm wrong, we can vote to recommend, but it's actually the townspeople that can vote and say, no, we don't want this, and no, we don't want that, correct?
Yes, yes.
And it's up to the committee to put forth anybody's proposals, because it's not the committee's decision as to where this money is spent. It's the townspeople decision where this money is spent. So if anybody comes with a proposal, it fits the category of the 4 pots or 3 pots, that should come to town meeting as a town vote. Am I correct in understanding
They would
that?
have to vet it through the CPA committee first. They
Right.
can't just change it like on the floor.
Right, but I mean, if you went to CPA and it fell into, X, Y, and Z categories,
Yeah.
the CPA can't just say, oh, no, we don't like that project. If it falls in, it's up to the townspeople to say,
No, it's
Yes,
up
we
to the
want-
CPA
Yes,
committee
C-
to make a recommendation,
CPA is
just
that
like
power.
capital.
Yeah.
This is that weird thing. This is what they were trying to leverage on there, saying that when it went to town
misunderstanding
meeting,
this.
that you couldn't modify it at town meeting. Of course, but our problem is they were mixing money. It wasn't just CPA funds and stuff like
Okay.
this. And I think maybe they learned a lesson, because I was a pain in the ass on the last 2 big time about when the free cash gets fixed in here. Yes, I think everybody
Did you
can
look at
agree.
the camera and say that again?
Do you want me to get my phone out?
But
Back that up, I want to record it.
it's a little
Yes.
confusing.
but-
It is, but I would think of it like capital, right? So people put forward a whole bunch of capital articles, and capital comes up with a plan that they present to town meeting. Now, town meeting can take items off the plan, but they can't just add a new item onto the plan. And that comes down to when you're talking about open meeting law, right? Because you have to have it in a warrant given to the public in advance. Because somebody could be vehemently opposed to something that isn't on there. And so, you know, they don't come because it's not on there. And if you could just change it at town meeting, then they wouldn't have an opportunity to vote on it, is kind of the example I give. So that's an open meeting law violation. So you have to have everything laid out in the warrant before you go to town meeting that you're asking the voters to vote on, and then they just vote.
But
The one exception is the regional school district budget that we have to put theirs in, but we can put our recommended one in, and then they can vote. But it is going to be in the warrant, so voters will know in advance.
But Lisa, I thought one of the points of having the CPA committee is that they were spending basically the year
Vetting projects.
things
Yeah.
and figuring out, because you still only have so much money and you have lots of different needs. So they're kind of figuring out what the best use of leveraging that for the town, and then presenting the best case, what they consider the best cases.
Correct.
And then at that point, the town can say, we agree with you, we don't agree with you. Like it, but they're doing that hard work.
Right.
They're going through everything, all the possibilities, and preventing. I can't talk tonight. But preventing the
guess I
best
yeah.
options.
Yeah.
What they
Yeah.
consider with their knowledge the best option.
Just like you all do on the budget.
But I do have a question. So with the school, did they vote? Did they give us a final number, or
Saturday.
Yeah,
Last
so
Saturday?
This coming
Coming
Saturday.
Saturday.
Coming Saturday.
Is that going to meet the 45-day limit?
They say yes.
I thought the 45-day was the 17th.
I hear it. I hear it. Thank you. This is really helpful information. I'll go with that. I hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more on the warrant before we move to the,
Transfer to stabilization, Article 25. Your free cash plan recommends transferring 10% to stabilization every year. That's 307,721.
Do we have it?
We have 3 million in free cash. But I did want to point out, and this might be the time, the issue of the school special education increase. And the board talked about this Monday night, and Scott brought up a point that maybe this is not the year to put money in stabilization and to put it into the money for the school that we've kind of been talking about.
next Scott Hawkins?
Scott Hawkins, I'm sorry. Yes, other Scott. Select Board Scott. So, and I, you know, he had talked about maybe even taking, you know, money out of stabilization, but my concern about taking out would be just that affects our bond rating. So I would rather see money not go in as opposed to being taken out.
I would agree there. And also, taking out requires 2/3 vote.
Correct,
So
which is a
basically-
little more challenging
Yes.
to take out. So if the thought is this may be a mechanism that we're thinking about for the schools, then we want to probably hold on this. But as it is part of the free cash plan to put in 10%, I had that in there as a article.
Is this a bylaw that we have?
No, that's
So
that's
then
a
why
plan.
won't we just omit
You can. That's
the
what I'm
article?
saying. It's up to
Yes.
it's up to you.
Yeah,
I don't
these
know, I'm
are
just
general guidelines, and of course, like any guidelines, I mean, there are times
Yeah,
that
I can-
you don't want to follow them religiously, even when events change significantly. And of course,
Right.
what's going on with the schools and with the special education, this is definitely a significant event that, where guidelines need to be temporarily adjusted or considered to be adjusted.
I'm just pulling. I'm gonna
Right.
put it up
Well,
on the
so
screen.
here it is, our free cash, certified free cash guidelines to general stabilization, 10%. To maintain or exceed the Department of Revenue recommended cash reserves threshold, right? And so part of what was proposed earlier was this 307,729. I don't think we ought to be looking at either of these funds to fund the school budgets. I'm okay with capital funding out of free cash. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay. I think we ought to go ahead with this motion to move that money into stabilization, but subject to where the select board lands on it, of course.
So, and they didn't take a vote because the warrant has just been looked at right now.
Okay.
It's got to go to, obviously, like I said, it's going to legal
So-
for the review.
So let me explain why I just said what I said. I got some more information today coming from the state level that we're going to be made whole on this special ed problem because it's across the board, across the state, Berlin, Boylston's problem. We're going to be made whole by the state. It's going to happen.
Really? Okay.
This fiscal year?
That's the view, yes. Well, there is the emergency fund, Scott.
There is
And I
emergency.
view the news that we just got, this late news that we got, that we're going to get some additional students that we just heard going into Berlin Memorial. I think that's where the current year emergency fund applies. And I would again look to the state. The state has the money, we don't. Right?
So this is your free cash plan, and like you said, it is just a plan. It is, in ideal circumstances, this is what you would do with your money.
But if we, sorry, Kristen, could you hit that little carrot on the right side so we can see the whole?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'll just make it a little easier to see what we got. Thank you.
Sure.
So, my question, and I think is the same with Mary, if we decide to do what we've always done to free cash, and we have to move the money, then we move it just by, no, it's going to free cash, not
Well,
reserve fund, yeah, never mind. I had a
Based on this
brain
plan,
lapse.
I came up with, this is a very rough, I mean, this obviously is not like fancy and polished, but this is where we're at. So we have $3,077,287 in FY23 free cash. We just talked about articles that would be used for free cash, that we use free cash rather. The $1,000 in prior year bills, the $50 to replenish the reserve fund. Capital can take up to 30%, which is that $923,186. Stabilization, the recommendation is 10%, which is the $307,729 that you see in the warrant. OPEB not yet established should be 10% once it is. Capital stabilization, it's recommended to put 10% in as well. And then there is a is it 20% that you do not spend?
Hang on,
Do
25.
not spend 20.
Yeah,
25%,
25% or 200,000, whichever is
Yeah.
greater.
Yep, so there's that do not spend amount of $769,322. So actually, because you're not putting into OPEB,
Which would be how much?
307.
Another 307,
If you followed,
10%.
if you followed your guidelines, it
If
would be
we- yeah.
307,729.
just like the others.
So basically, your do not spend is that 769. So because free cash is a bit more flush this year than normal, given all the non-COVID spending, you've actually got 718,321. So my recommendation would be to put some into stabilization and to look at that funding as a rollover, or if you wanted to do something with the schools. It's a really tough one, right?
Yeah.
If Mary's information, I'm not saying your information's bad. I was going to say, if Mary's information is good. That sounded wrong. But your information is solid. That would be amazing, because I just think that the state really needs to step up in this regard. And I made that really clear last week, and I know we cannot be the only city in town
Absolutely
that is
not.
having this outcry of, we can't pay this.
You saw the note from the Mass Association of School
School
Committees.
committees, yep.
And it is statewide issue, and I feel, obviously this is an opinion, this isn't fact, but I'm talking to people. I called our reps.
Yep.
I've been engaging at that level, and I think we want our parents to do that. The parents of our school children in our district need to do the same thing that I've been doing, which is collectively or individually get in touch with your representative, your senator, keep the noise going on the fact that the state needs to help out with special education this year across the board with the 14% increase in the tuition. The towns are not set up fiscally to do this. And I, as an opinion, again, member of this committee, if the general stabilization with a pencil in maybe OPEB, that's where I want to see this money go. Mm-hmm. Because we have a structural problem in our town with our employees that we need to fix. And I want to see us do it. I don't want to lose good people for this silly reason. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's a really important priority. And oh, by the way, we're looking at a 5% increase from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24 on the school budgets. That's double what we're doing in the rest of the town operational expenses. We are supporting the schools. And the town is, and Boylston is too, from what I'm understanding. The state can fill the gap and should. Yeah. And as I said, that last minute thing, well, it looks like we're going to have this number more students. What was it, 4 or 5 more students that are going to require special education spend? That's an emergency fund in the existing year sort of position that our district is in, and that's where they need to go to that state fund to fund those sort of late arrival students. We have to do our budget process. We have to balance our revenue, and that's what. And I'm looking at the senior work-off real estate tax thing and saying, okay, we're going to take those people's taxes up, but we're going to lower the amount of money they can earn and work out. It's like we're going the wrong way here, folks, right? And it's only part of the population in town, but I think as I reflected on it, and I wanted to wait a week. We were almost at the point of voting last week. I said, I want to think about it. I think this is the best way we can support our students, is to make sure that we straighten out, get the public support to straighten out these problems that are going on with funding at the state level coming down to the local level. And I don't think we as a town should distort our financial situation to accommodate work that hasn't been done at the state level. Do the work.
Well, unfortunately,
Sorry.
our legislatures have never actually cared, I think, about. Otherwise, they would actually have a budget being voted on before we have to deal with town meeting. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me they don't get around to having a budget until August, right? I mean, they don't even meet their deadlines, and then even thinking about our deadlines. I agree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with any part of it, and that the pressure needs to be there. Will they step up for us? Can we rely on them to step up for us? I think the answer is no. We do have to have a backup plan to whatever the state ends up deciding, and as ugly as it can be. Now, one of the proposals Scott Hawkins had from last night, his thoughts were this: looking at our 5%,
right?
And that's right. and going with our 5%, that's having the levy being an increase of 2.5%, and he was looking at it this way: was one, I think, to get some of the complication of it because of the split has to happen with Tohoto. And Tohoto is the one that we're closest to on the number, right? It's like $116,000, which is what their so-called level services plus, because I want to describe this as better just this level services, because it's not level services. It's level services plus the additional SPED mandates that are on the school. So it is above and beyond what they had before. The other piece being level services. His thoughts were considering meeting Tohoto, the request from the school at that time of the additional $116,000, which would be the number of 263,384. We've at the 5%, we're doing 147, 150, and then at the BMS level, trying to keep looking at just their present budget proposal, not the new thing that came up from last Thursday, but looking at their current budget proposal to consider meeting them partway with. Well, he actually used the word stabilization. I don't think that would be the appropriate way to go, but consider something like either free cash or that as a short-term solution for the spike in the special education that would overall keep the property tax levy, instead of looking if we went to the school numbers where it would be 6%, to keeping it, I think he said around like 4.5%, I think is what his target was. And whatever dollar amount of, I would guess more like free cash. The other thing that came up last Thursday about all this large group of out-of-district special education need children that suddenly popped up, with my combination of your argument of the state is trying to step up, and there is special, when you got a surge of this greater than 25%
Right.
increase, you can get funding now instead of waiting, so that they can push for that funding. And in additional, what I pointed out before, it seems like, in my opinion, that the projected revenue for SPED reimbursement this year from this past year is significantly low.
I agree.
Right? Because we're looking at this like 1.2 million of out-of-district expenses between Boylston and Berlin. You're capped at you're having to pay the first $57,000. When you're estimating around 17 students, that's, if everyone was at least getting the $57,000, you're at about $1 million. So there's like 1.2 million.
Yes.
Where you're looking at possibly getting, based on past numbers, 75% reimbursement for this year's towards next year's.
It's a significant amount of money that's
right now,
not showing up in the revenue
yes,
projections.
they've only projected
Significant.
300,000,
Which is
and it
ridiculous.
seems like there's a very good chance of being more in the neighborhood of 800,000. Right,
Absolutely.
and so part of it just saying we're looking at those numbers and move forward, and with this, that they will be getting more revenue than they have projected, significantly more, and that will plug their gap of what's even with this present situation. As I talked to Nancy, she points out too that, I mean, like anything, it's all an unknown, but a lot of times these kids that come in are foster kids and that stuff. They're only in the school system for a month, 2 months, 3 months. They're not necessarily this assumption that you have people are coming in and they're going to be living in this town, starting at kindergarten and be going to the age of 21 needing the support. It's possible. You don't know. But there is the past history of these things being, some level of them are temporary. But when you look at them over across the full year, they will look ugly. But again, it's all an unknown. And one thing I have to admit is, like, she's got more at risk than me on talking about these numbers. But at the same time, we also don't want them to be so conservative that they're looking totally flush going into the next year when they're asking for a big tax increase, and suddenly they have a huge amount of money coming in from the state, and what are they going to do with that? Because we'll have no control. They can do whatever they want, and then start,
I think we need to manage what is in our control to manage, which is our budget. And I think if we do that, we can help the schools in a number of ways. But we can't manage what we can't see. And I'm extremely disappointed on what I've seen from the school committee with respect to numbers and the kind of responsiveness. Kristen passed this out on the 11th. I think you received it from Michael Totman or from Nancy, and it's the Berlin Memorial expense categories.
Oh, yes.
Right, so there's a column, there's the 23 and the 24 proposed budgets, the 23 approved budgets, and the variance in dollars. Well, I took it and I calculated the percentages. And there's some expense categories, I don't know what fixed charges are, I don't know what other services are. But if you look at the percent increase, the out-of-district tuition expense line, and that would be the special education out-of-district tuition, I believe, yeah? Mm-hmm. That increase from 23 to 24 is 99.84%. Now, I calculated it.
We are waiting, in fairness,
Right.
we are waiting on an updated one. It is older. But yeah.
Okay. All right, so what did the state approve for out-of-district tuition? 14%. Okay, so then I went and looked at Berlin Memorial, what's the number of pupils? Did we suddenly double up? No, we had an increase of 1 in the special education category. 1, that's 11%. So the mass-approved tuition is going up 14, and we have an 11% increase in our population needing special ed. How do we get to 99.84% increase in this budget? The numbers don't make sense, and they have not made sense the entire way through this. And that's why I think we got to stick to our knitting, which is our budget. And we are, as a percent year on year, funding the schools in the proposed and the draft budget twice what everybody else is being funded, absent a contract or some other kind of thing going on. And I do think that my sense from talking to people, and it's not a fact, it's an opinion, is that the state will come through and take care of this special education funding issue that is across the state, not just our district. And go ahead, sorry, I should stop talking.
I didn't mean to interrupt you at all. I was just going to say the parent who was here that I mentioned was communicating with me. One of the reasons she was she was putting a letter together to have parents send
So
to
I
the
recommended
state.
that they do that. We do that a
great.
lot in nursing. I could come up with a few things that
We would sign on to that as a
Yeah.
committee. Come on, right?
We do that a lot. We get a letter. We send it to our distribution list, and it's a link, and it links to your senator and your representative, and all you have to do is hit the link, and the letter automatically populates. And I suggested to her at the last meeting that they draft a letter stating exactly what Mary just said, that this is a state problem, not towns aren't budgeted to do this, and that the state needs to look at special education.
Right.
And I suggested that they do that, because if you don't, the greasy wheel gets the grease. You don't, I mean, you don't, and I have too been reaching out to people. But I suggested that this should come from every parent at Berlin Memorial, because yes, every child deserves an education, but all children are on the table here, because the monies are going to be spent and everybody's affected by it.
Right. And my fear is, like you're saying, Scott and Mary, if they're underestimating revenues, what's going to happen is they're going to have to start making cuts if we're only going to put forth a 5%. And I'm concerned about, obviously, how devastating that is for the students, for the teachers. So I don't know. And we've gone back and forth, as you see in those emails, a few times on extraordinary relief funding,
Okay.
budgeting for SPED. Yeah.
Right, okay. So the line, the line of communication that's coming at us is this is really about special education. But then when we look at the presentation from the school committee that we saw on March 6th at the joint FinCom Boylston Berlin meeting, that the caveats in here are about, we're going to have to get rid of teachers, and we're going to have to make the parents pay for things. But if you could just assume that the special education problem is going to be solved, and then get back and look at the underlying budget. Again, I'm looking at the Berlin Memorial expense lines. Instruction year on year over year is only up 1.22%. Right? So your teachers are all set. I mean, your instruction, your those positions.
Right.
And then the other high category is fixed charges at 43.68% increase. So what are fixed charges? Are those benefits? I don't know. What is that? What is a fixed charge? Electricity, oil? Well, there's maintenance and operations up 12%. So this is the thing that she sent out.
Right.
Or that I think Nancy sent to you, was
Yeah,
to try to respond to our request. What are the expense lines? What are the
Right.
revenue lines?
And before I had found, because I had so many emails, I had a conversation with Mike Topman, I think it was late last week, and I actually said there's really this one pager that the,
Yeah.
FinCom is looking for. I said it's actually kind of modeled after what Assabet does. He says, send it to me. I'll work with Nancy on it. So that's in the works. I did send them the Assabet one pager.
I gave it to them the night of the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you
So-
you weren't the first one to
I
communicate
didn't-
this.
yeah.
No.
I actually walked
No.
up at the meeting and gave them my Assabet presentation and said, this is what everybody's speaking to. And after the meeting, I went to get it back, and she said, I can't keep this. I said, absolutely, you can have it. I can get another copy. And so they had that on that date, and we asked for it.
Okay.
So
Nancy had it, not Mr. Tobin.
Okay.
the only thing for sure on the revenue side, and Scott and I kind of passed it back and forth at the joint meeting of the finance committees, but Scott really landed it, that we're looking at a revenue estimate at around 300,000, really it ought to be maybe 800,000 at least, and maybe more, who knows. But, and that is their role to do we do revenue estimates here. We don't actually know what our revenue is going to be, but we estimate it.
Right.
So it looks like revenue's understated, and it looks like expenses are overstated. Okay, so that doesn't leave me with a comfortable feeling, which is why I say, let's go back and look at what the town of Berlin needs
Sure.
and act on what we know, the facts we know, because we're just not, it's opaque.
Well, and
Can't
the
see
only-
into it.
The only number we can really work with is how much we do property tax. I mean, the other numbers are
Yeah.
fixed. So,
Exactly.
and I know Boylston said, I believe at that joint meeting, they were going to do 4%. I will show you what 4% does, because instead of 2.5, it's not a lot.
Well, you're doing that. Can I ask something? So I was looking at this too, Mary, and the fixed charges is the biggest jump. It isn't even out of district tuition.
No, out of district is, Janet, out of district doubles from 149.
Go to your variances.
The variance is 148.
But
That's
out of
99.
district, that's out of district. But fixed charges is the highest jump at 253.
In terms of dollars, I was looking at percents.
I'm looking at dollar signs.
Yeah, I calculated the percentages, so that the fixed charges
Right, but I'm
as a
just-
percent is up 43.68.
Yeah.
Out of district tuition is up 99.8%. So I don't know what fixed charges are, but that's a big jump.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the percentage. I was just looking at.
They didn't give us percents, I calculated.
Right, I know
them.
you did that, but
Here.
I'm just saying, but that,
Janet, look at I added it to the page so that I have them lined up. They're almost lined up there. The percents are on the left. Same thing you're looking at, but I printed it out in there.
yeah, it's not making sense. And I know this isn't just our district, it's across the state. Anyways,
Well, one of the questions I would have about this Berlin Memorial expense category, these 6 categories, is clearly the out-of-district tuition relates to special ed. What else does? Are the fixed?
well, not necessarily it's not all out of,
The last line is out-of-district tuition.
correct, but
Right.
special ed just isn't out of district tuition. Like
So-
for instance, somebody that needs speech and language is considered a
Where do
special ed.
where do you put it on these expense
That's what my
categories?
question was.
You don't know either.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where that tab is, and that's what I was saying. Physical therapy. It might be a busing charge to our own district. That you know what I'm like if you need a wheelchair van, that's an added. I know transportation, but I'm just saying wouldn't necessarily be out of district.
Right.
It would be within our district if you needed to have a wheelchair van, and I don't know because they don't have it broken out.
Well, I mean, they do have, I mean, the main thing in the special education is the it's the whole out of district. That's where the costs really spike.
What
And
page you
on
on?
page 9 of their presentation is the key piece, because this is specific to the history of special education out of district placements for Boylston and Berlin. And so this is where we're breaking down the special ed budget specifically to the out of district placement, where the bubble is,
9.
right? Yeah, page 9.
Yep.
And this is, I think, still a key piece about, this is what, Mary brought it up, and then when we met them back in the joint meeting with the Boylston Finance Committee, is the key piece still on this one is, this is the out of district. We're seeing, the FY23 still projected is, you're looking at nearly 2 million for between Boylston and Berlin. So you're looking at, like I said, they had a number of
Scott,
17 students.
Where's your 2 million? Which column are you
So
in?
if you go FY23 projected.
Projected.
Right, you got 1,000,004, you got 946,000, right?
yeah.
And you got 8 students Boylston, 9 Berlin. I'm just
Right.
combining things together. So you get 2 million.
Right.
And you've got 17 students. We know we have to eat the first 57K of a student. Assuming you had the worst case scenario where you had to eat 57,000, because somebody might have only 20,000 or 30,000. But that adds up to about 1 million. So then you start looking at that and you start getting 700, now all of a sudden you're looking at 75%
Yep.
back around $1 million. And that would be on to FY24. And likewise, if you look at FY24, you're looking at about 1.2 million, and then getting 75% back, because that looks like a little bit more of students. You got 21 students, but you're still looking at that number that's much bigger. You should be getting reimbursement, and they're projecting just 300,000. And if you look at their history, they're kind of basing on their past history. Well, you look at the past history and see how it spiked in FY23 for Boylston. It started our spike in FY22 for Berlin. So the projected numbers just don't, like say, they seem to be significantly, extremely conservative. And then coming to the town and asking, raise and appropriate or raise the tax levy to make up for our very conservative numbers on this. I mean, that's my belief.
Yeah, because look at the percentage there, 127 and 22.
Yes.
And then it only went up 1%, yet 3 students.
And this is the FY24 projected. All of a sudden now they have a FY24 projected of what, it'll be 1.7 million? Because what was it, 600 and some thousand for BMS?
Yeah, 640 more, I believe.
Yeah, so you're looking at that being a 1.7 million jump to FY24 projected right now after last week's information.
Right, because this was from last week.
But if it went up 27%, wouldn't they have gotten a bigger pot back?
Yes, that's our
And-
point. That's our
And,
point.
and we're only looking at numbers of what, 39 to 46.
Yep.
Well, when you look at the numbers they get back, unfortunately the numbers end up being combined. So you have on
Well, they're
page,
combined on their sheet, but they can certainly tell us what they are broken out.
so
Well,
they,
that's
they-
what we're trying, we've been asking
right.
for
So on
this
page
kind of detail.
23,
Yeah.
they have the broken out. Now again, it's not broken out by. Let's see. What they have the budget numbers, but they don't have the circuit breaker broken out by. I mean, I guess it all comes in as one pot that it goes into. I guess it's not broken out by the schools, and you can see how the revenue line is what they project, what the actuals that came in. So FY22,
Right.
so the actuals were 292. FY23, which it wouldn't be actuals, I guess that would be projected still 379, 788, and they've only projected 300 for FY24.
But that's when you went from 120 to up 127%, and they're projecting lower
Precisely.
revenue.
Precisely,
Which
Janet.
makes no sense.
Hello.
I know, I get it, I just don't understand why they don't get it.
And we asked the question, and I don't remember, do you have that email, Mary, by chance? I don't remember the
I
answer
was
off
trying
the
to
top of my
find
head.
it.
I just didn't want to pull my emails up.
No.
I don't think we got an answer in writing on that question. What I've heard
Okay.
spoken at meetings is that, we can't rely on the state.
That's, I remember
And-
hearing
and-
that.
And, you know,
I think we asked about upping that, though. I don't know why but you're right, maybe we didn't get a...
I think in my email that I sent to you, Kristen, I think I talked about,
I think I almost...
let me look at my email.
Yeah, and then the other thing, the only place that they discuss, that they break anything down is on page 16, because on that page, they target expenses being what they're putting towards the budget. They say 275,000, and if you go to page 16, you'll see how they're doing it. They're saying 25,000 to BMS, 25,000 to BES, and 225,000 to Tohoto. So they broke out how they're going to put circuit breaker money toward the FY24 budget by schools, and the revenue here just shows it just is coming in as one lump sum into the circuit breaker account.
I'm sorry,
And-
we're on 16, Scott?
Well, slide 16.
Slide 16.
Yeah, it just, all it does is
Wait,
gives a circuit breaker breakdown of how they're allocating that 275 number, which are allocating to the
Which,
budget.
that's how we get to 300.
which is
Well,
$25,000
the
less than what
expense.
they're,
No, the expense, that's this side. This is what they're projecting in revenue from the
Right,
state.
right.
The
This
300.
is what they're-
275 is the expense in that account, which they're projecting towards the budget. So on 16, you see that 275 is broken out, 25,000 going to BMS, 25,000 BES, and 225 to Tohoto. So you get your 275 number. So they broke out there of how they're, but it just seems like that.
so my question
This-
though is, they got revenue of 300 and they're expensing 275.
Right. So this
So
is
where's
what,
the other 25?
well, what it is, you see, so they're never completely broken.
We
these
want 300, 400, 500,000. You want 25,000.
Well, I
It's like-
just wanted to match.
Well, no,
Hello.
well, what this is also, they're never completely broken these accounts. These so this is the circuit breaker account. Their projection is that they'll have at the end of FY23 267,000 as a balance.
Right.
That they'll get 300,000 in FY24 from the state. They'll put 275,000, which means their balance will actually increase to 292,000. So
Yeah.
this one is their increase in their balance. Just like if you go to other counts that they have, that actually one that has the most flush is BMS, and that's the school choice account. Boylston Elementary looks very poor. Let's see, what page is that on? So if you look at those,
I have it tabbed. Hang on a minute. The school choice one. I know I have it
Yes.
tabbed. Because I was just earlier today.
it has it
looking at
with
this.
all the towns on it. It's kind of
Which one are you looking for?
School choice.
the school choice.
It's not here. Is that towards the end, maybe?
Let's
Vocational
see.
tuition? No, that's
No.
It must be. It shows the fund balances, how much are.
Yeah, and they apply it 3
Projection.
years out, right?
Oh, this is slide 22. So you can see,
Almost there, I didn't
the
tap.
one next to the most flush is BMS. So right now, they're forecasting, so at the end of FY22, they have a balance of $613,000. So in FY23, they're forecasting they'll get revenue of $73,000, and they're expending $108,000 to the budget. So it'll have a revolving of, you'll have an ending balance of $578,000. You can see that what they're projecting is in FY '24, '25, '26 to put 176,062 all 3 years to the budget, getting revenue in. So they're increasing that by about 100,000 over the actual revenue coming in. So you'll see the fund balance declining over this time. But you also at this time where you kind of look at this and say, should we be looking at, I mean, this is, if they can't tell it's raining right now, I mean, it is storming for them when it comes to special education.
Precisely.
And these type of revolving accounts, I know they don't want to go to zero, but they need to start looking at, they have money, and they have money that they can fill this and make it much easier for this, hopefully, a major spike that will hopefully have some valleys come up on the special education. So this does give them, though they do have funding balances here that they can use to plug gaps, and if the state doesn't come through, they have, it's not like they're only looking at this money. I mean, they have money in accounts that they're holding on to. And yes, I understand they want to use them to smooth things out. This one, there's such a bad spike. Bumping this up by 76,000 isn't doing anything to smooth this out. You can see the Boylston's is they've got like nothing, and they're in their elementary school. But in BMS, where we are going to get hit really bad if things move forward with what the information we have on the out of district SPED expenses that just popped up last week, they have some alternatives to go to, and I believe that circuit breaker revenue target is significantly low. I mean, we're not talking about tens of thousands, we're talking about hundreds of thousands on this. So there are some things that we can push back on here. I don't know if anybody from the school committee, and so far I haven't heard anybody speak numbers from the school committee other than we support their budget. I don't know if anybody in the school committee is actually pushing back on any of their numbers.
Well, Scott, I want to point out that this presentation from March 6th from our joint FinCom meetings, it's captioned Berlin-Boylston Regional School District FY24 proposed budget presented by the school committee. It says prepared by, but it's presented by. So, and actually it was presented by Nancy.
Yes. Well, I
But they're signing on to what's in this presentation.
Right. But at the same time, I mean, and I don't know what their background in finance or anything of that nature is, but at the same time, I don't know what kind of pushback they put on their own finance director of what those numbers should be, other than saying, we're just going to support you. They can't be a board that's just going to be the yes man for the administration. They need to also be pushing back on those financial numbers. Maybe there's something in one of the previous budget meetings that they had that I've definitely not gone back to look at all the school committee stuff that they've been shown where they've tried to push back on these numbers.
I was just going to show you that if we do what Boylston is doing, if that's what they're still doing,
Yep.
and we go up 1.5% on taxes and make this 4% instead of 2.5%, that gives us an extra $197,000, which means we can take the school percentages up to 8% for BMS and for Tohoto, with a little bit left over. What is that, like $1,100?
So how much are we short on Tohoto by in whole dollar amounts from what their request was at
Still,
8?
you mean?
Yeah, because I think it's 8.9, isn't it? Right, so we're close to 235. Excuse me, their requested is 263, right?
So
Is that
their request for Berlin is 4.7. That's the new
Yeah,
one.
their increase projected is your line or column BP. So
Yep.
263, and we'd be increasing it by 235. So you'd be at less than 30,000, 28,000 short of what their request ask was on that. Of course, obviously BMS is a much bigger
Right.
So what's
We're much closer on Tohoto than
Yes.
we are on BMS.
Well, yeah, because BMS, we were like 300 and, no, what were we, 320, is it, exactly, what is it?
Can
Do I
you
have?
go back to so that's with taxes, what were
That's
yeah,
raising taxes
right.
by 4%
Right, and
instead
what-
of 2.5%.
What is that going to do to the average family income dollar-wise?
So that would be, so that's an extra, hold on, so let me.
I know,
do
it's a
this.
little,
No, that's okay.
well, it's almost double, so let's just say five, it's gonna be almost
Right.
another $1,100, basically, right?
Well, it's because you
I gotta throw it into the.
you have to
calculator.
take off the, like, the new growth and any
Yeah,
other increase in
right.
revenue, so it's not a easy,
No, I
Um,
understand,
mm.
but.
No, that's okay, because I have my little calculator here. My little revenue, the state, God love them in their infinite wisdom, gave us this. And I actually mean that not sarcastically. I realized at 9:30 at night that came across a little sarcastic.
down,
Where
down,
are we?
down, Berlin, up,
Oh my gosh, I can't find
right.
Berlin. That's it. So that's another 197.5, I think it was. Again, magical
Yeah,
numbers,
no, I
estimated,
know,
all the
I know,
caveats.
I know.
Another $118, give or take, on top of your already 400. So now you're talking, say, 525. I like to go in 25, 50,
Yeah.
75, and hundreds.
Don't bother with pennies.
Per,
Average single-family home valued at 558, because that's the FY23. Now valuations
went up.
go up in 24.
Yeah.
Commercial values go down in 20. You know, my
Yeah.
spiel. Have to give it. June would be
yeah.
remiss.
It's only if you had that, well, the difference between the both of them going up and down. If they all just
Right.
go up, same percentage, then it doesn't, it's all, comes out the same anyways.
Right. So
Well, no
if
matter
I
how we
do-
look at it, our taxes are going up.
they are.
Well, yeah, that's the only way we'll ever be able to do that is if you just limit yourself to the new growth and whatever extra revenue. I mean, if you did 350,000 new growth of what 17,000 or the
Yeah,
state the the state
and I'm-
aid going up 17,000, 5,000 on
Right.
local receipts.
I'm pushing it on new growth because, as you can see, new growth
Yeah.
is less this year than it was in 23. It's slowed, so we're only at 265. I actually should get a February number now.
So our actual is 265 through January.
Yeah. Let me get a February new growth number from Molly. But June wanted me to have that number at 300, and I pushed it and made her scream to 350.
And she's
So
not
I'm
here
already
tonight.
pushing it.
She's a bit way.
Oh, I did it
I
while
know.
she
This
was
is-
still here.
this was-
Oh, you're saying change it because she's not here? Oh.
yeah,
I
this
thought
was
you meant
done
I
a
changed
while
it because she
ago.
wasn't here. I changed it a while back. But
Well, you know,
Yeah.
part of driving the thing with Boylston, if I understand it correctly, Scott, the emails between you and Eric were that there was some significant new growth, industrial, commercial.
Yeah.
Well-
And so it gave them,
$800,000
gave them a little
or
bit
it
of,
gave them a lot of breathing room
correct.
in their local
Which
budget.
is something we need to start looking at in this town.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that whole thing, if that was their actual for FY23,
Well, yeah,
or
that's
if they're
kind of
projected.
like really ridiculous.
But apparently some,
sounds like right.
I'm not sure what, some type of warehouse business.
yeah.
I'm just doing fun math here. I'm trying to get myself a new formula, so if I play with this number. Okay, so if I do 4%, yep, that goes to 876.
So if we're still at odds with all this, we will propose our budget and their budget and let the townspeople decide. Is that what we were at?
Well, in the end, the townspeople will decide. I mean,
Yeah.
that's- They're the ones, ours is just a recommendation.
Well,
Right.
obviously,
Yeah,
I
so
get
pretty
that, but I
close.
mean,
Well, it's,
Did I just say 5? You just said 525?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel bad. I just wanted to double check myself. We're pretty close. 513. Okay.
The question, Janet, I think right now is what does our Scott here and Scott Hawkins on select board, what's, what ought to be our number in the
No,
budget?
Yeah,
I
what do we do
understand.
with that free
Yeah.
cash?
Yeah, that
Here's
free
my
cash question,
argument
et
for
cetera.
not touching free cash. I haven't shown you the capital request yet.
Oh.
This is my argument right here for not touching free cash. What's yelling at me? Can you see that?
No, which one you on?
Shingle
Shingle
roof for BMS, FY25, $1.1 million.
And we're putting it in our capital budget?
They're coming back next year to ask for it.
That's like our whole capital.
Correct.
Whole is
So
here.
no one else will
Just-
get anything if we have to fund that.
Well,
Right, okay. Yes, I understand. That's why we're,
That's the
what's
sloped,
looming on the
that's the sloped
horizon,
roof, right?
that is the shingle roof. This year, they're doing the flat roof.
Right.
The rubber one.
Which is the 272, 838 up here at the top.
right. So
So-
we've done pretty well on the capital side for the schools this year.
We've given them everything they've asked for
Yeah, okay,
on the
so,
capital side.
so, yeah.
Capital is recommending giving them what they've asked for. That is obviously up to the voters. at town meeting, but-
And when I read the presentation from June 6th, I'm seeing things like
But this number scares me.
There's,
Berlin Memorial School, rotting doors, cracked sidewalks, no HVAC for air circulation. So this is obstacles to meeting their educational goals, but we're taking care of the building, right?
Yeah, I mean,
With the capital budget,
because we have a little bit more flexibility in free cash.
we do.
Because town departments were so frugal during COVID, and there were things that couldn't get done. My fear is those things do need to get done, and also this roof needs to get done.
Now, that roof do we obviously need 3 bids?
Oh yeah, this is just a cost estimate, so we know what's coming. That's going to go up by the time we go and do it.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
how many sections of this? I'm trying to remember, and where's the picture of the school?
There's the
and
flat roof repair, and then I think the rest is the shingle. I think they said that in their. Did they say that in their presentation? too?
Not the March 6th one,
Oh,
but
there's the
it was in the
capital
the February 8th. They gave us some capital numbers.
You'll have to forgive me. I don't know what EPDM means.
It's a polymer.
Ah,
It's a polymer. It's ethylene, ethyl propyl di something,
Yeah.
dimethyl.
chemistry
ethylpro-
and
yeah,
I
It's rubber-ish.
didn't get along.
It's a yeah,
That's why
it's a
I'm not a doctor. I'm here as a town
it's
administrator.
elastomer. It's flexible.
Okay.
Think rubber band's only tough.
And it's the same roof
Got it.
that's on our fire house up.
Okay.
The same, we just refer to it as rubber.
Got it. Some type of polymer.
Yeah. It stands for,
I thought it was like a local abbreviation for something.
No,
I
it's-
didn't know what
Is it
was.
ethyl? Is it ethyl propyl something?
well, actually, it's butyl liquid rubber coating, but I'm trying to find
that's
the
a
actual-
different- that's
yeah,
not
No, that's
EPDM.
what it says, yeah.
yeah,
Hold
but
on,
EPDM is something else. It's another chemical.
It's a membrane roof.
It's a membrane roof, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's flexible, it's got good UV and temperature,
However,
it's
they
all
are
that stuff.
saying that it's maybe not the roof to have in New England.
Yes, I agree.
Ethylene polypropylene monomer.
Oh, ethylene
Very nicely
propylene
done.
dimonomer, yeah, okay.
So that's,
And they're supposed to last 50 years or plus. And this school is not 50 years old, and we've already replaced it.
we've replaced it before now?
No, this
Oh, this will be the
is be our
replacement.
first.
So the slanted roof. I mean, I know there's different sections to there. I'm assuming that that 1.1 million. Assuming it's all the slanted roofs there, or is it something that they could break up and spread out over time? That would.
I think it's the rest of it. I mean,
you don't want it to get to the point of obviously. I don't know what their status is right now. Are they always saying it's like leaking and all this stuff, or are they working off a time frame of let's get it done before? they
I
can get to
know
that standpoint?
the EPDM part, I think they had a leak, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll stand corrected, they're good for 25 to 30 years,
I was
so
just
we're
gonna
right
say,
there.
They're saying it's a 22-year roof.
Yeah.
And it's a 22-year-old roof, and that they're saying it's good for 20. But maybe when it was put on back in the day, they
It
weren't.
just says the
installed.
average is between, the lifespan is between 25 and 30 years.
I wouldn't split hairs in this, all flat roofs leak, okay?
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
a
full
flat,
stop.
it's a
Flat
flat
roofs,
roof.
Not a good
is-
design.
Yeah.
Florida
No.
schools in New England.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't
Dealt with
believe
this
all
in
the
before.
from the plans that I'm seeing put forth, that a lot of the new schools, they are not putting on these flat roofs. Like Tohoto
They figured it
was
out.
like the very last, that last
They
design
leak.
was the last year of flat roofs.
Disaster.
Well, how do they handle that with the, all, I mean, usually it's all the HVAC stuff that's up there and that. It's like when you don't have a flat roof, where does they
Solar.
put that?
Well, I guess you could put solar on a picture.
I mean, they
but-
still need, I mean, usually it's the fans, the cooling and all this type of stuff that's up there, so
You
I don't
can
know.
build an elevator tower adjacent to the building.
That's what
to
they
handle
do,
all
is
your-
they just
all your,
they stick
your
it that
mechanics.
Put it outside.
Yeah,
somehow.
why not?
Yeah.
All right, I'm fading
Okay.
fast here. I have
Yeah.
to. My hip is.
All right,
I
we
gotta-
do have a reserve fund transfer for veterans for
Okay.
$4,500.
So basically, we stopped at Article 24, and we were talking about the funds, but we didn't take any votes, so we'll continue discussing that next week.
Yeah, we'll have
And
June
actually-
and,
Oh, wait a minute, good news, we stopped at 24?
We were done.
Oh, yeah, no, well, we didn't vote on 25, but we talked about 25.
Right.
26, 27, 28, and 29 are, 26, 27, 28 are zoning. One is zoning to a planning, and 29 is to set the election. I mean, if you really want to vote on that.
So we
So
don't-
we're essentially done.
We don't have,
Done.
we don't
just
have a
need to-
recommendation on any of the zoning stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll ask Tim if he can come next Wednesday.
So that's,
And we will discuss the.
I think June can answer my questions. Just.
Okay, and we'll also discuss the generalization, the transfer funds, the generalization stabilization fund next week.
Yes.
Okay.
that's what diverted us into the whole school discussion.
I
So-
just thought if I said what we actually said.
So I guess my question is, and maybe we need to find out, or, well, maybe we don't want to dovetail with what Boylston is doing. I don't know. That's a question for,
It
Kind
will
of
be
you all.
easier next week, because if they have their meeting on the weekend,
we'll have
know-
the numbers.
we'll know
Yeah.
what they're actually talking about. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I do think that the two towns' revenue situation, and I think and costs, we're in a different position. The elementary
Right.
schools are quite different in where they sit in the funding area, so
That's
I
very
don't think we
true.
need to match Boylston, and part of the reason to get together was to understand a bit whether we could be a
Are we
unified.
here, or
Yeah,
are we-
and I don't
yeah.
think Scott.
yeah, I think the only one, I mean, is obviously Tohoto, because that's the one that's like, well, if we're, every dollar we cut, they have to cut
They have to add in
another
right?
$2
Yeah, they
or
have to-
approximately
yeah,
that
yeah.
rate. So that's the trickier one.
Well,
Obviously, if,
that's an area to try to come together, isn't it?
well, actually, I think one of the areas that like Sky Hawkins brought up, like that particular piece,
Yeah.
was that one. If you come together
It's just
on
that
it, it
it's
just
veterans
makes
benefits,
that
people that have qualified
simple,
for
a little more simplified.
benefits based on-
Right.
No, I mean, if we it's something to think about here. If we did do 8%, we're within less than, I think it was 28K or something like that. But at the same time, it's like it's like what can they do to project better revenue numbers? Because I still think their revenue is extremely conservative.
And I'm looking at my email to Kristen on the state revenues that I sent on the 10th. 2 data points, and you forwarded it over to the either Nancy or Mike Totman or someone, schools.
Yeah, and I think she wrote me back that was really good news. Hopefully that'll stay that way. She did actually write me earlier about one thing they're trying to do, but they're not sure if they can, and they won't know in time for town meeting, if they might be able to put a program together at Berlin Memorial to serve some of those new students in district, which might have some cost savings, but they don't know how much, and they don't know if they will know by town meeting. But it looks like she was talking about maybe $150,000 savings if they didn't have to do out of district. So you're still talking a $500,000 number. It still doesn't fix the problem, I guess is my point. But
Right.
I wanted to point out that they are trying to think of different options to
Yeah.
fix or
Which is-
address the 600.
Yeah, which is,
Okay.
is a great way to think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I meant to mention that earlier. And
Well, I think, I wasn't sure whether I had sent over this thing from my conversation with our state rep, but I put it in the note that she said she clearly couldn't predict funding in the approved budget post-legislative review, but she said historically, the legislature has applied the governor's proposed school funding as a floor for their budget amendments and did not cut that part of the governor's proposed budget. So there's no guarantee there, but it's a positive indicator.
yes.
This is why I can't understand the reluctance to rely on state revenues on the special ed piece.
The one thing you have to also go by is they have historically had a Republican governor's budget with that floor, so that's a little
It's a
bit
good point.
different.
That's right.
That's
And
something
she
to
said-
remember.
She said we got a different budget, we got a
Yes.
different governor, but,
Yes. So,
yeah,
Yeah,
and that could
it's-
explain that, of course, she's only got a few years there. I don't know, we should ask Hank Naughton go back a few more years.
Yeah, like when Patrick was there, what was the, how much of his budget was the floor?
Exactly.
Or was that them looking and
Exactly.
going, you're out there a little too much, and next thing you know, of course, when he was there, it was the Great Recession, so his budgets aren't probably the best to as
But
historical.
her comment wasn't across the board budget, it was schools.
Right.
And I don't think Baker was being bad to the schools. I think he was pretty middle of the road on all that kind of stuff, so.
In the last 3 years have all been impacted by COVID.
Exactly.
So
Nothing
you
is,
can't even, you
recent
can't even,
history is not
you
normal.
know, you can't
Nope.
even like talk about it. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that we reserve fund transfer 4,500 request for the veterans. And as I had a little side chat with Kristen, this is just because more people have put in for services and have been approved, and it's just no control over of this when needs come up. Did I explain that well enough?
Is this reflected in the new budget? Because I know veterans
I asked
are
that.
like double.
So they come and they go, so it's really hard to predict. This is the one I see the most reserve fund transfers for and that I'm used to seeing. So I have to look and see what his new budget accounts for, but I know there is an increase in it. So
I asked her the same question while you and Mary were talking.
Yeah.
So
So I'm
anyway, it's 4,500 to
From-
compensate for shortfalls of funds due to an increase of need of veterans.
We have a
people's
second?
incomes change.
Income.
And I'm sorry, this is from to,
Veterans.
Veterans services.
it's from Reserve Fund.
Oh, sorry, reserve fund transfer request. I apologize.
That's okay,
I said that, but I didn't repeat
to
it.
veterans,
To veteran services.
veteran services.
So that was my motion.
I'll second that.
All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Julie, I.
And then I just had, if we could, a couple quick line items for you on the budget that the select board approved. And then we're basically, you guys are like basically done, except for the schools. Although, what time is it? Oh gosh, it's almost 10. Why don't we just, you want to just do them next Wednesday
Sure.
with the school? Because there's only a couple of them.
Sounds
We'll
good.
let everybody
Yeah.
ride on.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you.
Second that.
Yay.